nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. Fun time had by all. We all share our discoveries and faves and new curiosities with each other. I'm Petey Rave. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my gang. We've got David.
I'm pretty sure that most of this is my fault.
We've got Drew.
I don't know what is my fault. I'm just angry.
And we've got Brett.
Yeah, another the synthwave album for us.
Yes.
Piece of cake.
Yes, exactly. And then we also have a special guest, Matt.
Hey.
Matt
I made Drew really angry in very few words, and I'm not exactly sure how.
All you have to do is order which was created first, reggae or ska, and he just flips a table and starts frothing at the mouth. I don't know. It's like his trigger.
Even though I don't know if I've heard him bring anything other than third wave ska to Record Breakers, or any ska waves other than third wave to Record Breakers.
The Aquabats defy your
or post
earthly.
Third wave or post.
Yeah.
I am the fifth wave.
Yes. I am.
Sixth waves is right out. Seventh wave now. That's.
But yes,
when they add hand percussions, hand percussion, literal hands percussion.
Yes.
Not yes. Well, and that's a
but we'll
segue
get into that when we talk
album,
about
Petey.
today's album.
Yes, we're here to talk about an album. We're here to talk about a record, and of course, the special guest, Matt, is providing the album for us this week. Matt, what have you got for us this week?
I am bringing the 1976 album by Chick Corea, My Spanish Heart.
Yes. Let's talk about expectations or anticipation. David, what were your thoughts? What were your expectations or anticipation coming into this album?
Well, my expectations were something that weren't totally off the mark. I'm familiar with some of Chick Corea's work via the band Return to Forever, a jazz fusion-ish progressive rock band that had their heyday in the 70s with a bunch of real heavy-hitter musician-ass musicians. Stanley Clark, Al Di Meola, Jean-Luc Ponty, just to name a few. So I expected this album to be significantly more Latin than Return to Forever, but I was very much down for it.
Yes. Drew, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, as David said, Chick Corea is tied to Stanley Clark. Therefore, I'm familiar.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can all come to this from our own little fucking worlds too, can't we?
Yeah, it's weird.
Each and every one of us in a different way has our Kevin Bacon to this album.
And that's the thing is not only did I play an instrument in high school and was in jazz band in high school, so therefore became familiar with say Armando's Roomba, because you play jazz standards. That's what you do, in high school jazz band. You play the hits. You don't play things like giant steps. But
hey, now I mean, you could. What if you did though? What if you were playing giant steps?
You would be an amazing high school musician.
Round Midnight, the high school version. Let me.
Well, that one's at least doable.
Play Schizoid Man. Have some balls.
but it's something that I've never done a front to back of Chick Corea. It's always unless it's Return to Forever, I've never done a front to back of just this is a Chick Corea album.
It's a front to back album.
Yes.
you got 2 fronts and 2 backs.
Yes. Side
4
1,
acts.
Side 2, side 3, side 4.
Oh yeah.
But it was something that I was very excited. I expected some great piano playing, and some great composition work, oddly enough. Maybe I got those, maybe I didn't. Who knows? We'll see.
Yes. Brett, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, I mean, okay, so like, admittedly, my jazz knowledge is mostly about what I think is well, I came to jazz through guitar, so I guitar focused, and then I was like, oh, who are these cool people that are like, who's this Charles Mingus feller, and who are these people that are playing with these guitar people? Oh, who's these piano people? They don't seem to play with guitar people as much. I like guitar people. The piano seems to be stepping on the guitar parts. So I guess I'm not a piano guy, so I didn't really get into it. But there's like stuff that you absolutely know, and like the standards. And Chick Corea is also weird, and like when it comes to music of that type, I dug weird. Like I did not know how much of this was going. It says My Spanish Heart, and like look at the album cover. That man is dressed like he is ready for like any kind of things that are culturally inappropriate for me to assume he's doing in that, other than playing a piano. But like that is a man who is probably going to have. I mean, I knew there were going to be synthesizers. Spoiler alert: I knew some of this album, but I didn't know how much of it was going to span from like completely different things. Like there's one side of the album that's all synthesizers. And then the next one's not. There's none. Like there's like none. It's weird. So
yeah. I was curious and I was excited to kind of like actually sit down and consume a front to back, or no, front to back. There's no third album. Sorry, not a triple album. It's a double album.
It's not a Grateful Dead concert.
No.
4 A-sides.
I'm not high tonight, everybody.
Exactly. I was curious and I was excited to kind of like sit down and consume some Chick Corea in totalum. And I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to get into, because I think like I know that there's going to be, and I think there's some clues as we discussed ahead of time of like discussing Afro-Caribbean history and music history and things like that. I knew that there was going to be some influences or appropriations, or however you want to look at it. But I was curious as to kind of how that played out. And yeah, it was excited. Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
I kind of describe Chick Corea in general as the king of listenable jazz. I'm not the hugest fan of bebop. I have come to appreciate it, but it's not the easiest thing to listen to, what with all the saxophones playing weird notes.
Hey, what if I told you guitars play bebop too? And sometimes they play chords.
A little better.
Tell a fucking saxophone to play a chord.
Yeah. Watch him. But Chick Corea,
the one saxophone player.
Yeah.
The saxophone slander. Goodness.
Oh.
Hey, they're stealing good working jobs out of guitarists.
Wait till I started talking about
they
trombones.
can work together. I've been trying to tell you guys this.
I'm all down for the sexy sax.
Since I brought a King Crimson album.
I mean,
I'm down for some sexy sax. Getting sexy. But go on.
Okay. So yeah, I think most Chick Corea that I've listened to, and including this album to some extent, like you could put this in front of a non-jazz listener and they would find a lot more to enjoy than some other jazz. This album, it's a mix of, as Brett alluded to, it's a mix of real instruments and synthesizers.
Wait, you're telling me synthesizers aren't real instruments?
Acoustic instruments, excuse me.
There we go.
Yeah,
thank you. It's important to be correct about this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so close to making another dig at saxophone, but
Yeah, that was the,
And the synthesizers, guys, come
Right.
on, you're breaking my heart
I
here.
like synthesizers.
Just
I love
poking and
synthesizers.
poking.
Acoustic and electric and synthesizers, and which is electric, whatever.
yeah, we don't actually have opinions about that.
I don't
we're,
have.
We're joshing.
I do appreciate though that there are times when there is a brass section and they are real brass instruments and not synthesized.
Yeah, you
very
can't
poorly
synthesize the mouth
synthesized.
noises. Yeah. You can't synthesize wind coming out of a human being like was recorded on some of that.
Yes.
It was very breathy.
The miking was real good on this record.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the I think one of the things that makes a lot of Chick Corea's stuff so listenable, and I'd say listenable, enjoyable even, is quite often a lot of his songs will have this central motif that you will return to, and everybody plays either in between solos or sometimes during the solo. And to me, I think that does a really good job of keeping everything grounded, so you don't just end off in outer space immediately and you're going, what was I just listening to? I have a really hard time not listening to this album straight through. Quite often I'll like, oh, I want to listen to that song, and then an hour later I've listened to the whole album. And it's, as also previously mentioned, it was originally 2 albums, so 4 sides, and every side is a complete thought, which is also really nice.
Mm-hmm. That backup.
Confirmed. They did have drugs in 1976.
Yes. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album musically as jazz that does not go completely off the rails. Jazz that can be palatable for people that do not like jazz at all. And there is some soloing, for sure, but it doesn't just sound like notes on top of notes on top of notes. Bless you. The solos make sense. And it all kind of flows together. Each side of this double album makes sense. And like Matt said, it's a pretty easy listen for a double album. So credit to Chick Corea for doing that. Mm-hmm. It's very, very solid. You can put this on and you can listen to it intently with your speakers. You can do things in the background. You'll enjoy the rhythms. You will enjoy the solos when they start and they grab you. It really is just kind of a complete, enjoyable jazz album that does not scare you. It's not scary jazz.
Mm-hmm. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
I think I'm gonna say easy listenable jazz isn't wrong, but then it's not easy listening. So I don't want to use that moniker, so to speak. But for lack of a better term, I guess that would be what I go with. The album does have a lot of like central ideas and themes it goes with, which makes it a through line. A lot of what I think people have a problem with some like fusion jazz and freeform jazz and stuff like that is it constantly feels like a noodling solo, which like it's
mostly the horns, that trumpet just going off for like circular breathing for 40 minutes.
Yeah. But it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's
that's
great.
Awesome.
And for people who like want to pick at that, like it's great fun. For musicians, especially like when you're doing that and like there's a musician behind an instrument that you play and you can really like dissect that.
He's
it's
hitting
a cool
that quadruple double mixolydian flat.
Right.
Yeah.
but it's not the thing you want to put on
Can't believe
at
I
work
actually
to just like
understand that.
listen to, right? I put this on at work and nobody got mad at me for listening to like weird jazz music. Like
No,
people were
nobody
just
gets
like,
mad
this
oh,
at
isn't
piano
weird.
jazz.
This isn't
Yeah.
weird.
it makes sense. It's also Chick Corea. Like he's a jazz great for a goddamn reason. Basically helping birth a goddamn genre. The personnel on this album is nuts. Stanley Clark, who, like I said before, kind of comes along with Chick Corea for most of Chick Corea being Chick Corea. You have Gad, like you see Gad behind the drums. Man, come.
The guy
It
what
wears-
played on Peg.
Like
It's the guy what played on like Round Midnight, if you can say that. Yeah. That's
album-
fucking crazy.
it wears its like Spanish influence on its sleeve, of course. The dance rhythms in this are heavy and many and awesome. And you're mixing that with like a fusion jazz backing, which is great. If I could say one thing, the one thing I wish was the mixing was a little bit different on the bass, because at times it felt a little thin, but I'm a Clark dork that wants him to do his thudly thuds all the time and be thick. But you have Chick Corea on the front, you're mixing for piano, right? Like that's sort of what you do. Because he's great. Like what else do you say? Like it's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
It's piano jazz. It's piano jazz with some people who can play like Caribbean music really good. And a bass guitar that does some work. Man. So like let's talk about the piece parts here. So like of the album, you have your like what you would think of as a like pretty much an entire 70s jazz album. Like like almost straight ahead. It's not as fusiony as like it is definitely fusing two things, but it is not wild and crazy. Then you have like one side of the next album that's like the amazing new electric pop of Jean-Jacques Perret, and then you have a completely different jazz piano album on the end. So like things that make those parts different. Okay, so let's start with the regular jazz stuff. Stanley Clark. Let's talk about Stanley Clark. You may know him from works with, Stuart Copeland for The Police, Bale Fleck, Marcus Miller, Victor Wooten, Al Di Meola, Les Claypool, Pee Wee Herman, The Church of Scientology, maybe. He's done everything with everyone. He has ties to the Digital Underground. He has it's everything.
Cliff Burton called him an influence.
Yeah, I mean, dude knows how to play bass. And when I think of a who's that jazz bassist that I think of first, it's Charlie Mingus, and mainly because of a bad joke from C-Lab 2021 about Mingus Do. But other than that, you think Stanley. You're like, yeah, Stanley. But it is when you get into the parts that are different, you start hearing the synthesizers, and I then look, it's 1976. First thing I do when I think of synthesizers is think about, God, those things must have been expensive and really heavy. I hear the weight, and I sit there and I'm like, okay, what this is obviously very, in the long scope of things, early synthesizers. You can hear that pitch wheel sounds a little funny. I don't know if the stepping is quite correct on it, but doing all right. The rule of cool is in effect. It works. But the synthesizers are pretty weird. There's some odd things they don't do with synthesizers as much anymore in that way. I think it was artificial pan flute. I think they were trying to make a pan flute sound but it was up where a pan flute hung out, and it was but when you're working a keyboard, and it's a synthesizer, it can be anything as a dude. So it's hard to explain, but it hung out where in your Brazilian music or your Peruvian music actually would be more where it was hanging out. That was neat. There was also parts where it sounded like it was slightly clipping to the point where it sounded like somebody was blowing the like good raspberry on their trombone, like, but it was synthesized. But it was like it was. I could see how a musician from back then would be like, this synthesizer is cool, because didn't know the entire future was ahead of them, and like, so it's got some of that like adorable early synthesizer work, like oh man, that's cool. Like,
synthesizer is a responsibility that should not be wielded by everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes good sometimes,
But the
Like, when
ones
it goes
that
bad to
can
others.
wield it should get free reign.
well, I mean, this works because he's a keyboard player, so that like it's better than like having the syntax come out and like it's a little harder to follow. I also wanted to say that like most people are not going to have problems with this album because most people are conditioned from watching the Weather Channel to piano jazz, including fast. It's like a lot of people learned how to follow piano jazz because of cartoons as well. Like, people don't seem as overwhelmed when there's two hands going up and down a piano, whereas they do when you're going two hands up and down a guitar. There's like it's kind of a thing that like you can be a little bit crazy with a piano, but you're still on a piano. It's still, you're working with that stuff. Like it's, and you got two hands, unless you've got six fingers. See the Space Jazz, the soundtrack to Battlefield Earth, if you want to hear about six fingers on bringing Battlefield Earth knowledge to you. But there are a lot of ways that you can break this down, because there's like 4 sides on this thing. But there's a lot of it, but it's constantly moving.
Yeah. I have no I have nothing to contribute. It's well made. It's fun and it's easy to listen to. I am not as well versed in jazz to be able to add anything, so I will move on to key tracks. Key tracks, Matt. What will be some of the key tracks for you to zero in on?
Start with I'm just gonna do all three at the same time. Love Castle to the Gardens to Day Dance. It's just they kind of lead into each other. And it's just a really nice flow. And Love Castle comes in and starts out with piano, and then you're like, ooh yeah, lead electric bass, baby. And then the song just starts building, and then the trumpets come in with this nice little pop, and it just hits just right. And then the Gardens comes right afterward, when you get lead upright bass, baby.
Yeah. Upright bass.
How could you tell it's an upright bass? Could you hear the hands physically pulling back those strings?
Yeah, how do you hear that?
But you do. Like, you can definitely hear it.
Well, there's I mean, for in this case especially, the electric bass just sounds very much like an electric bass. It has it may have been a fretless, so it has that wow sound.
Fretless.
And the upright bass, it just has this. It has like ambiance on it.
A presence.
You can hear the string rattling.
Yeah, and you can hear the sound bouncing around inside the body.
Because I can definitely hear a fretless, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the part of the fretless is that, like, when you hit the fretless bass, you're not, like, a fret keeps you dead on a pitch if you press it properly, whereas if you don't have frets, you got to be good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you were, like, using a slide, let's say.
Yeah.
Possibly. And the other thing, in the garden specifically, it's bowed, and you can hear the horsehair, with the rosin.
Yes, fire shot through his fingertips while he rosined up his bow.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Day Dance It had clapping and hand percussion, and I absolutely loved it. I could imagine a beautiful woman in a red dress dancing, and I live for that. It was fantastic. Night Streets, track 5, finishes strong after the first part of the song is, I would say, a bit of a breather, but it finishes strong, and side 1 is just fantastic, and it finishes really, really strong.
Night
Side
Streets
2
makes me want to dance.
Yeah. Side 2 starts with The Hilltop, and Chick Corea is definitely doing things, and it's definitely with an instrument that I don't know anything about, but I'm digging it. It's cool. And I will also say, because honestly, just the entire album, really, I didn't love side 2. Didn't love it. I thought it was okay. Didn't love it as much as the rest. Spanish
Also
Fantasy Part
pretty
3.
Short. So there's not as much to
It's like
find
15
to
minutes
love.
or something. Yeah.
El Bozo is a masterpiece. It's just a masterpiece. It's so good. Also, on Spanish Fantasy Part 3, you can really hear Chick Corea just saying, I'm going to go in on this track. I'm just going to go in. And he does, and it's great.
Yes. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
1. Sorry, didn't realize the mic was on. I was trying to figure out dinner. No, but Love Castle. Starting with that strong dancing rhythm, that little bit of vocal, adding that nice layer. It's just a wonderfully fun song. Then Night Streets, which ends the first side, the first act, as it were, as I'm thinking about this in my head. A song that's depicting night streets. This is exactly what I want out of that idea. Again, heavy on the like dance rhythm, heavy on the Spanish influence. It's got that like street life sort of feel to it. Like I said earlier, Armando's Roomba is something that it's familiar. It's a jazz standard. It's a standard for a reason, though, because it is absolutely phenomenal. It has everything you want in sort of a standard of this ilk. And then I can't pick out just one, but the entire saga of El Bozo is just fun jazz with like a lot of synths before synths became synths. But like just
this is a modular Moog. Like I just looked it up. A Model 15. There's a poly Moog as well for the polyphonic parts.
right.
Because hitting two
have
notes
some-
at the same time, important.
Yeah.
I have
It's
some
something
thoughts
where
on this.
you can almost like there is influence in what happened in the 80s from these specific tracks that made up like the El Bozo like section, and it's awesome to hear. It is fun. It is great. As somebody who likes weird synthy stuff, I'm super down.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, I'm going to describe these things in my way, more than like give a review because I don't actually do that very much. Love Castle. I row, you row, we row. This is a different kind than what I normally bring. It's not the hollowed out gourd. Instead, it's the metal tube kind that you like stainless steel. So it's like that instead of like a as I Foley into my microphone. So it's a little different. It's the kind
That's
that
what I'm
like
here for.
yeah.
Keep going.
You know, like it's some S tier guiro. It's like it's up there. It's like the cowbell skit from SNL, but the guiro. It's like I want to see the appropriated for a different culture redo of that SNL sketch where instead of "Don't Fear the Reaper," it's like somebody guiroing like nobody's business. It's great. Like percussion instruments are used for a reason. They have a job. Treat them with respect. And I respect that. There's a like the bass on Love Castle. It kind of sounded like it was it was kind of brassy. I don't know what they were doing. There was like maybe it was in the recording or something, but there was like some funky like modulation going on. Like I don't know if it was in the recording or like the way that I was listening like to it very simply, but it was amazing. And when you got about a minute to go, you'll know, because you'll hear the exact like orchestral hit as if Solid Snake got caught. It's pretty great.
Wurzel.
Like it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Day dance. I don't listen to a lot of piano jazz, and when I do, it's normally weird stuff. But it kept my attention and kept me very happy. Wind Dance. Let me just say, when I heard Wind Dance open, I was like looking around, perhaps where I need to select or wrong so I can fight King, or like there's some definite character select screen that has been got used a lot in the mid 90s. People got back into this stuff.
Get ready for the next battle.
Yeah.
I love how the Japanese took jazz and like this specific era of jazz and just put it in video games. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I hate to say I like what this did because it had nothing to, but it still works. Now let's get on to sides 3 and 4, because that's when we get into the thing everybody needs. Jazz violin. Jazz violin is a take it or leave it thing for me. Normally, if there's not Django Reinhardt hanging out, I'm not there for it. It's just like, what am I at a Dave Matthews concert? Like, what are we doing here?
Shots fired.
When it's good, it's good. And this is real good. Literal hand percussion. I mean, who out there does not think that the best part of Another One Bites the Dust is when you go like and remember to do the double clap it's fun clapping.
If anybody ever does Deep in the Heart of Texas, you'll know who the Texans are, because it's just an involuntary reflex of "Are big and bright."
Yes.
You can't help it.
Everybody loves the fact everybody owns that instrument if they have two hands, and even if you don't have two hands, you can smack stuff and make that same.
Bone.
That's right. Yeah. You can do it all. The sound of one hand clapping over there. It's a standard. Who cares? Jazz standards. El Bozo Part 1. The saga of El Bozo is pretty awesome. Especially the part where you get the ping pong ball and you try and throw it into the bucket. Chicago kids will know. But that's the part 1. It's a Chekhov synthesizer. If you see a synthesizer in the first half of the first album, it's gonna be used in the third. The pitch wheel is something that brought me a lot of joy. The bending, the sliding kind of stuff. Good times. Electric instruments that old they're amazing, and they are like. And as someone in this call has messed with old electromechanical and other kinds of early instruments that have solid analog connections, and you open them up and you're like, this is a Swiss watch. And I'm surprised anybody ever made one of these things. And and this is some good use of it. And part 3 of El Bozo. The Bozo Returns. Strikes Back. Sorry. It is. That's the one that had the almost like synthesized pan flute that just made me happy. Now I did grab my claves and I was going to teach you guys how to tell the difference between a bossa nova song and literally anything else. And it's pretty simple. If you can hum the girl from Ipanema to it. And also, if you could pretty much just do any 4/4 song in the beat, it's probably bossa nova. Bossa nova I love bossa nova. I think it's great. It's very easy to learn how to play bossa nova. Like if you can do things and throw a Phrygian lick in and
the Wee Shop and the Me Town are both classic bossa tunes.
Bossa Nova. Chevy Nova?
I mean, Bossa Nova is a good time. somehow, I don't know why it was the one that got big. Like, I don't know why, other than I think a lot of bebop players could.
Because Destinado is too hard for most people.
But I mean, the girl from Ipanema, like that is not an amazing song, but it is everywhere.
I've had multiple conversations about that song and wondering why people know that song who don't know any jazz. They have not heard of any other song, but they will walk up to my friend who's playing. Exactly. They will walk up to my friend who's playing classical guitar in a Greek restaurant, and they'll be like, "Can you play Girl from?" Can you play Girl from Ipanema? Right.
Yeah.
It's people my age, and my friend is.
I think they put the Girl from Ipanema in like in a Suda game, and like video games have had it because it's one of those that shows up.
But how would they know the name though?
Yeah, that's the and it, yeah.
There's a few things like that just kind of. There's a particular set and sequence of dance moves that I see all the time, and I don't know where it comes from. But it's freaking weird.
Yeah. I will stand firm on my Girl from Ipanema, not the standard. I'm glad it's not on this album. Like, it's great, fantastic. Armando's Roomba is more fun anyway. Like, I'll have Roomba's more fun than Bossa Nova most of the time. There's
hot take.
Yeah, I won't go too deep because y'all pretty much kind of nailed it.
What are your thoughts on Roomba? What do you like about Roombas, Petey?
I mean, they work
Homer
well,
Simpson
but
did it in like the 5th episode.
They work well, but sometimes the programming is a little bit funky, and then like you screw one of them up. Does your cat ride your
Roomba?
And then like if you accidentally like close a room, or the room the charger is in, it's like it messes up and stops and runs out of battery. And you don't realize it, and then the mop doesn't work because it's the sweeper signals the mop.
And we all know the mop is the backbone of a Roomba band.
Yes, exactly.
Truer words were never spoken.
I loved El Bozo as the whole thing. It's just a whole lot of fun, and Spanish Fantasy as a counterpart to it on the flip side. It's a physical flip side to it, and a metaphorical flip side to it, which is fantastic. I also I enjoyed the Spotify version of the album, or the deluxe version, finishing with the bonus track "The Clouds." That was a nice little ending for it. You know, it's not from the original album, but it's a nice little ending to the album.
It's a bit more of a gentle send off than Spanish Fantasy Part 4.
Yeah, I think that works that works well. But yeah, let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what will be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
Chick Corea is a musical genius. And it was an incredibly inspired album. Just ideas just exploding out of his head, and just having the ability to put them onto tape is just remarkable. Also, he produced this album, and it is mixed and mastered exceptionally well for 1976.
By Rick Rubin.
Really?
No. Not at all.
I didn't think.
It is recorded amazingly well. Like you brought up the bass guitars. Like you can tell, you hear it, you feel it. It's weird.
The mixing and the mastering on this album. You could
probably set up a bass to have the same action as the one on the album just by listening.
Yeah. Listening to this on Spotify with my headphones, I forgot this was made in 1976. I thought this was a remastered version, and it is not. Like, wow. And just an extremely impressive album. Again, these are some musician-ass musicians. I don't know what's going on with any of this, but I know it's great. because I enjoyed a lot of it. It was just a joy. It was a 5-course meal of some good-ass Tekken in music form. And it also had moments in between each dish in the 5-course meal that let you settle and digest to where you didn't feel like you were overstuffed by the end. It was 4 sides in a 5-course meal, and it was damn good.
Mm-hmm. Drew, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
It's amazing. There's I don't know what else to say that hasn't been said. It's something that, like, was started out as, it's a jazz record that is more listenable than what you think of as a straight jazz record is. It is infinitely more danceable than most jazz you get, of the instrumental type, I guess. There's old crooner jazz, I guess, but of this era, it was Chick Corea. If you ever wondered, I wonder what piano can do. Chick Corea is a good one to listen to for it. And it wears its influence on its sleeve, and I like that. And when you get something that really pushes, I appreciate this style of music, but I have a thing I do, so I'm gonna use that style of music in the thing I do. It's fun, it's cool, and something that again, you can, if you want to listen to some jazz, but you don't want to piss off people who don't quote get jazz.
Fuck them. Put on Holdsworth.
Yeah.
Or just let them listen to just a bass guitar for an entire album.
Get one of Al Di Meola's solo
guitars,
records.
maybe.
Get one of Al Di Meola's solo records. Fuck them.
Fuck them.
Zamfir pan flute music all day.
And super worth the time.
Yeah. Yeah, Brett. How would you conclude on this album as a whole?
I mean, the way that I would sum this up in the broken way that my mind says, every single one of these songs feels like I could 100% be placing a bet using salt currency at a Muujin gambling site. I feel like I could definitely hear almost all of these songs with Colonel Sanders
presents.
and Ronald McDonald fighting each other, or a sprite of the Incredible Hulk that's painted to look like Johnny Bravo fighting against Cinema Roll from Sanrio. There's a lot of different things going on this album, and if you want to dig around in what was drawn, what parts were borrowed to make this to fuse? what was the other hand of the other side of the dance? Who was Chick Corea touching fingers with to fuse? And let me tell you, there's a pretty great set of Wikipedia pages that you can look at Afro-Brazilian and Afro-Cuban percussion, and it breaks it down. And you may end up learning about dances that are traditional dances in the Philippines, because that's how colonialism works. But it's interesting. I find this stuff super interesting. I think that jazz fusion is one of the good things to come from the cultural exchange. I like it when people put their what is now a Reese's cup to me. It was one time peanut butter and chocolate, putting Latin percussion stylings from all the way from flamenco, like that kind of stuff. Put that in my blues based music. Do it all the time. I love it.
That reminds me, Jeremy Clarkson says that America gave the world 2 things and 2 things only, and that is Right on Red and jazz music, and those were America's only contributions to society.
But who gives a shit what Jeremy Clarkson thinks?
That's right. What does he know? He doesn't know from a pork tenderloin.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
He apparently knows how to throw a right hook, but that's
That's neither. here nor
Only
there.
to service workers, though, I think, right? Or was it like an employee?
It was a person on production who
Yeah, staff
apparently
member.
was kind of riding him hard all day and then didn't do the right thing at the end of the day to get the right meal. And Jeremy Clarkson
That
got
man?
real pissed.
Jan Ochoa. No, I kid.
Probably.
Yes. I mean, if I were to conclude on this album as a whole, is that it's just genius, engaging, fun, easy to consume, good for.
It's cool.
It's cool. It's good for playing when you're like
it
doing
sounds
stuff.
good.
It sounds good.
Pool party.
Your parents won't yell at you for listening to obscene music.
Exactly.
If you got good headphones, put them on.
If you got
Exactly.
bad headphones, so did people when they had this record. So go to town.
Yes. It is highly worth checking out and enjoying because it is very, very enjoyable. But yeah. Last but not least, Matt, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
I always get a little nervous whenever I think about even just think about bringing a jazz album to the show, because while I do play some of the music, I just, unless I'm watching it, I just listen to it. I don't analyze it.
Yeah.
But that said, I love this album. It's one of the few, most of them Chick Corea, that I put on just for enjoyment. Like, you know, I'm not the type of person to just put on Dizzy Gillespie and be like, I'm going to work on my, coding project. But this album, I can. And quite often I'll just think, oh, I want to listen to Love Castle or Night Streets or Armando's Rumba.
Coltrane. And now I feel weird.
You're a better jazz listener than I.
I feel weird now.
It's Victor Wooten all the time for me, so that's
That makes sense.
It's
But usually, like, I'll listen to one of those three, and then I end up finishing the album out. If you're thinking, and Jean-Luc Ponty's violin just adds a perfect touch. And if you're kind of thinking, I want to get into jazz, but I don't know where to start, listen to this one. It's great.
Mario Brothers.
giant
Yes,
steps.
this one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe do this before you go to Bebop. Like if you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this is.
Well, what about Rocksteady? Can we go to Rock?
I mean, Rhinoceros versus Warthog. You make your call.
Exactly.
Also, Chick Corea did an album with Bela Fleck.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that. Bela Fleck is fusion. Like, he's a New York man who plays a banjo, so that makes sense.
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm gonna be doing. I was looking at a picture of Bobby McFerrin hanging out with him. I was like, oh, Bobby McFerrin.
Yeah, those are our thoughts on Chick Corea's My Spanish Heart. And now we get to the main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for, our haiku reviews, where we sum it all up in poetic form with the 575. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haikumero numero uno. HQ still hasn't set that cease and desist because they died a long time ago. David, what is your haiku?
Chick could do so much. This barely tips the iceberg, and it's fucking great.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what is your haiku?
I guess mine tipped a hand I thought we would have tipped by now. Keyboard jazz legend to send off our legend here. See you soon, Hibbard.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what is your haiku?
Well, I will say I just clicked on Bobby McFerrin, and that led me to Yo-Yo Ma collaborations, and then I see Yo-Yo Ma had worked with Carlos Santana, and there we go, back around. Piano jazz great. 4 sides of musical joy, and amazing bleeps and bloops. Yo-Yo Ma, upright cello.
My haiku, lively fusion jazz, Afro-Caribbean sounds, a worthwhile listen. And last but not least, Matt, what is your haiku?
Regrounding motifs, expert instrumentation, fantastic album.
Mm-hmm. Those are our thoughts on Chick Corea's My Spanish Heart. You can, of course, find it on our Spotify playlists. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Play along at home with both playlists. One with the episodes slotted in as appropriately, and one without, just the album. So they're both you can find them on our show notes at recordbreakerspodcast.com. But yeah, on that Spotify playlist will be the next episode. So while we figure out the plan for who we're gonna bring in as the fourth record breaker, either temporarily or permanently, we're gonna have a couple weeks away. But I know what the album is going to be, regardless of when and with who we come back with, and it's going to be my album. Luckily, my album for the next episode of the show is going to be almost very fitting to kind of like follow up with this album, but more recent, as in last year, as opposed to 1976. We're going to talk about Daphne Spirito Sextet and their album Transparency. So the Daphne Spirito Sextet, Transparency. So you can find it on our Spotify playlist. But yeah, look forward to that. But that'll be in the future, and we are here now. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Brett is at HibbyBibberd, HIBBITYBIBBRD. Drew is at X2X. I'm at PD Rave. Matt is at MReddickW. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli.net for listening to their shows. Rebelli TV on Twitch and on YouTube. Follow the channel on Twitch and subscribe to YouTube. We try to have a pretty active Twitch stream schedule with Through the Tomes, our D&D show. When we're active, when we come back, we'll be streaming Record Breakers as well. When I say when we come back, it's not going to be like a long time enough, just like a couple weeks we'll be back. That Space Truckin', where Brett, Daisy, and I play Starbound.
I'm not on the workman's comp.
Yes. We're looking to play more of that, and who knows if we kind of come to a good conclusion on that, we might parlay into other games and things like that. But for now, Starbound, just really enjoying it. And my streams, like my PD Plays Fridays and things like that. Keep an eye on the schedules and things like that, and follow along and follow my socials. But yeah, until next time, hasta los huevos.
Rebelli Podcast, baby.
#find
This lick.
Fighting.
That's my favorite lick.
Oh, the chord note triplets.
Yeah.
I really hope you have enjoyed this program.